Slurper. Another humanoid monster, this one crawls along the floor. Its arms are similar to the closers in that, instead of hands, the arms end in two slightly rounded, fleshy, bulbous protrusions. Their heads are void of eyes, and their mouths and noses are elongated to look like the proportions of an anteater. Even after being shot, it will sometimes play dead, making it a very annoying, if sometimes deadly, predator. Usually found in groups, slurpers often enjoy ambushes, knocking Heather down for a short period of time. The monsters get their name from their habit of slurping up the rust-colored blood and bits of flesh that stick to the floor. The best possible method of dealing with these things is to first put as much distance between Heather and the slurper as possible, then shooting them with the handgun quickly. If you must conserve ammo, use a maul overhead attack. It's slow, but it's the best melee weapon to get the job done. Also, be aware that sometimes you can slip around them by putting some beef jerky down. Some speculate that slurpers represent bottom feeders of the human world. Konami has released no official statement as to their symbolism, and I find it odd that of all the things that might plague Heather's subconsciousness, bottom feeders would be one of the big ones to manifest itself in her nightmare world. If anything, I find that their toned male body and the manner in which they crawl over her if knocked down is more telling of their sexual symbolism than anything else. Keep in mind that Heather is a teenage girl after all and may be struggling with sexual feelings, while the part of her that's from Alyssa knows the dangers of men. Remember, her doctors working with her mother to keep her trapped in her pain were men, as well as Dr. Kaufman. But again, with no official statement, these are all speculations. Slurpers are found in the office building, the Nightmare Hospital, and the church. Glutton. The Glutton monster manifests itself into the world from the fairy tale found in the office building in the other world. It appears as a huge, leech-shaped creature with a single eye which convulses and squirms, surrounded by stalactites and stalagmites, which gives the impression of teeth. The first part of the fairy tale, which Heather finds in front of the Glutton, introduces the monster as a fierce beast eating everyone in the land without batting an eye. In fact, the exact passage goes, "Once upon a time, there was a monster living at the gates of a village. It was a very scary and a very bad monster. It would catch people and crunch them up with its big teeth. The villagers were afraid of the monster, and no one would dare approach the gates. Everyone was stuck inside the village. When the king heard about this, he summoned his knights. The knights eagerly rode out to defeat the monster. Ha! Take that! Their swords slashed and their spears flashed, but the monster wouldn't die. The monster tossed the knights into his mouth one by one, horses and all. What was the king to do? He fretted and fussed and paced the floor, but could think of no solution. Soon after, the village priestess came to the castle. She was a very kind and good person. The king asked her to defeat the monster guarding the gates. Here the story cuts off, and Heather must piece together the tale so that she can escape the building due to the huge monster blocking the exit. Although you cannot hurt this creature, and believe me, when I first saw this thing, I shot off 2 clips until I was sure that it couldn't be the way to remove the menace. Know that it can't harm you. Heather expresses worry about getting too close to it, but you can get as close as possible, and nothing will happen. As you explore the Otherworld office building, you come across the last 2 pieces of the fairy tale. The rest read as follows. The priestess accepted the king's request and went to the village gates, but when she saw the monster, she tried to convince it with words instead of killing it. "Shut up, you! I'm going to eat you up!" The monster didn't listen to a word the priestess said, but she kept trying to convince the monster to give up. It's wrong to eat people, you know. The monster grew very angry at this and attacked her, killing her with a single mighty blow. The king and his people shed tears at the death of the kind priestess. God took pity upon them, and granting their wishes, healed the priestess. The priestess opened her eyes, just as she had done every morning of her life. She went once more to the monster's lair. "Fool! You wish to die again?" "No, this time it's your turn." The priestess had come to defeat the monster once and for all. As the priestess was very, very kind, she felt sad about this task, but it had to be done. "Swords and spears won't work. Arrows and bullets will just bounce off. You can't kill me," the monster laughed. But the priestess used neither swords nor spear. She chanted but a single spell, Tu fui ego eris. Do you know what happened then? The monster let out a huge cry and then died and vanished. Thus the villagers were able to use their gates once more. Everyone lavished their gratitude upon the priestess, and they all lived happily ever after. To those unfamiliar with Latin, the phrase she spoke translates to, "As I am, so you shall also be." My Latin is self-taught, so although I only know a few phrases and words, I did know this one, which gave me a little tingle of pride, I will admit. I also would like to share that this phrase was very common to find on the tombs and gravestones of the departed, as a reminder to the living of what awaits them and to cherish their time on earth. After the phrase is spoken, the monster moans, and when Heather returns to the spot, it has vanished. While the glutton makes no hostile actions, it is still blocking Heather from leaving the building, much like how the creature in the storybook blocked the villagers from leaving their village. It is the embodiment of fear and helplessness before the circumstances. Missionary. The second boss of the game is the Missionary, and I, for one, am still scared shitless of this guy. He is a tall humanoid monster capable of carrying out orders from Claudia, as she reveals he is the one who murdered Harry. Wearing a sack over his head and a noose around his neck, he sports tonfa-like weapons with long blades jutting from the handles. On his body is a bloodied, stained butcher's smock, and on his arms are long rubber gloves, also covered in blood. His attacks may need some getting used to before learning his pattern. He often wanders about until he suddenly charges for an attack. He's quick on his feet, with reflexes even quicker, so don't waste bullets while he's facing you. He'll just deflect them. A well-timed melee attack can be quite effective on him, and if worse comes to worse, a shotgun is also a fine choice. Try getting him from the side, or at best, the back. His choice method of attack is a slashing move, so watch his telltale sign and try to sidestep him. Later at the church, you will see a few missionary lookalikes, but be aware that they are not considered the same monster. Those creatures I will discuss later. The missionary is a cult member transfigured by Claudia's power. To Heather's eyes, the appearance it takes is that of a monster. The battle with the missionary takes place on the rooftop of the Daisy Villa apartment building. Nurse. The nurses in Silent Hill 3 are a prime example of how this staple monster has evolved throughout the series. Being the most sophisticated type of nurse up to this game, these lovely ladies appear more human-like, with a black bobbed haircut, although their faces are still slightly distorted, with blood around their mouths and permanently closed eyes. Dressed in a nurse's outfit, with the traditional hat on their head, they dress very similar to the Silent Hill 2 nurses. They make heavy panting noises, and when injured, they issue blood-curdling wails. Adding to their sophistication, they now carry two different types of weapons, either the iconic iron pipe or a black revolver. Beware of the ones with the guns. They are probably the most deadly monsters up until that point. And unless you're trying to get a very specific ending, do not equip the perfume because they will attack in greater numbers. In Konami's authorized information on this monster, they hint that the nurses of the hospital transformed into monsters, although even this information is very non-committal. The nurses are found in Brookhaven Hospital. I don't know what kind of hell is waiting for me there, but I've got no other choice. I don't care about God or paradise. If that's what she believes, then fine. But she won't get away with what she did. When I find her, I'll kill her myself.